but somebody told me a story who practices mindfulness, and this is a really good story. And I may butcher some of it, but that's okay. It's not about the details of it. And they sent in a story, and I asked if I could share it, and they said yes. And what I think this story encompasses, and this is why I want to share it with you, is because, well, a few things. One is, we never know when stress is going to hit us or how it's going to hit us. We might be doing fine, and then all of a sudden we get a letter in the mail, saying we owe, I don't know, $2,000 for the electricity bill or something like that. Or, we get into an argument or a fight with a loved one or someone we care about, or we get into a car accident, or we get fired from our job, or we get a new job and it's very stressful, or we're dealing with divorce and custody battles or whatever it might be. And so the point of all these practices is that, you might have a practice. You might focus on your breath, for instance, and that might be your anchor, right? And you're fine. And then all of a sudden, the weather changes outside, and there might be a storm, or let's say there's fires outside, and now you go outside and you feel your lungs more, and you can't focus on your breath anymore. Or when you focus on your breath, you notice the irritation, and you don't really find it to be a resource as much as it was even a week ago, right? Or a day ago. Yesterday, the breath was my resource. Today, it's not. It's not working for me. And so another reason that I really recommend, the repetition coming to these sessions is because we talk about various anchors that we can use. And this person was actually in court fighting a custody battle, and was practicing trying to be in the present moment. Somebody's trying to take the kids away and things like that. And it's like, gee, that's probably one of the most stressful things somebody could go through as a parent. And so in that moment, right, trying to practice being in the present moment so that you can respond to any accusations that are coming or whatever it might be, right? Responses, questions from the judge, whatever it might be. And your resource doesn't work. It's not working. I'm trying to focus on my breath. You might, maybe you're hyperventilating or something like that. Okay, my breath isn't working. It's causing me to be more anxious. And in this situation, it's very interesting. Her head was hurting quite a bit. Almost felt like sort of, her head was going to explode in the courtroom, and hadn't really thought of it or hadn't used pain as an anchor, but essentially because they had been coming to these sessions that, even if you don't practice it, that it's sort of, you hear it and it just sort of sits in the back of your head. And then one day something might come up and you go, oh, I'm going to try to practice this. I recall, Dr. Zapater mentioning maybe it'll work now. She was having such a pounding headache that imagine having such a pounding headache. You're in front of the judge, custody battle, and what you do is you actually focus on the head pain itself as a sensation of the present moment, right? As difficult as that could be, it sort of, whatever happened in that moment, that thought for her to practice this, came up, triggered it. Wow, it's so intense. This sensation is so intense right now. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to go into this headache, into this head pain. And doing so actually helped her stay in the present moment. So going into the pain in the present moment actually helped her stay in the present moment, helped her be able to respond to all the questions and in the moment defend, et cetera, et cetera. And she ended up winning her case. And so we don't know, I think that's a beautiful story because one, anytime we talk about pain, we're always trying to get rid of it. There's a big resistance to pain. But in the mindfulness for pain class, if you recall, one of the things that we have done is actually turn towards it, right? I don't know if you guys remember that, if you were with me, but turning towards it, like, I can't, it won't go away, right? And we turn towards it. And so that was another. So you never know, just even if you're preparing your coffee or tea or having lunch while you're listening to me, you never know when the tools, you want to diversify the tools in your toolbox such that when life does hit you, that you say, okay, look, I tried this, oh, that's right. Okay, I've tried to do all these things that divert me away from what's going on or, my pain. Let me go into it. And that was an opening. Imagine that, right? Being this opening, this severe head pain being an opening for the present moment in court during a custody battle. Pretty remarkable. All right. So the person, he's a neuropsychologist who's done a lot of work on this. His name is Rick Hansen. He's written books like Buddha's Brain and Hardwiring Happiness. I believe he's a scholar or fellow at the UC Berkeley mindfulness something or another. Some foundation at UC Berkeley. Senior fellow, Greater Good Science Center. Great. That's a good name, isn't it? Greater Good Science Center. Where you study? I study the greater good. I love it. Anyway, so he's really looked at the neuroscience of hardwiring happiness, cultivating joy. And essentially, a lot of what his research, and he's done a lot of work with like neurologists and other psychologists and things like that. And this work really kind of intermeshes. And now, what I call it is enriched mindfulness. Enriched mindfulness. And this is actually something that I've been practicing actively, like consciously practicing over the last few years, and it has been remarkable. I can't stress it enough. It has been remarkable. And then when I came across his work, I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is I love this. And so essentially what he goes into is, he goes into this negativity bias that we are sort of genetically predisposed to have. And the reason for that is mostly evolutionary, in that if you have a negativity bias, for instance, you remember or you think about, how much you don't have, or you feel like you live in scarcity, or, you're always concerned about, let's say from an evolutionary perspective, are you in the right place for water and food? And maybe the tribes that worried about that more moved. Oh, this place doesn't really look like it's good for food and water, and so they took their tribe and moved. Where genetically the tribes that weren't really concerned about it may have been lost because of famine. And so if you are out in the wilderness, for instance, and you're constantly monitoring your surroundings because you fear that maybe a lion or tiger or bear is going to attack you, well, maybe you will have seen the lion or tiger or bear before and been able to react and do something. And the hunters or gatherers who didn't really pay attention to that, well, they didn't survive. So that's the theory, is that there is actually a genetic predisposition from a purely survival perspective for us to have a negativity bias. That we, that if something bad happens, for instance, we burn our hand on a stove, that from a survival perspective, we want that to be ingrained in our brain more than if you put your hand in a warm tub and it felt really nice. No. There's no survival benefit in putting your hand in a warm tub and feeling nice. And so what are you more likely going to remember? Well, from a survival perspective, putting your hand on a burning stove, because you don't want to do that again. There's danger for tissue damage, and there's risk of tissue damage, and if you have tissue damage, then there's risk for infection. If you have an infection, especially when we didn't have antibiotics or surgery or anything like that, then you're going to lose your arm or even lose your life. So there's this negativity bias. If you kind of think back, go back and just think of your last most intense memories over the last 10 years. Hopefully they're good ones, but you might be remembering with quicker ease maybe negative things that happened to you. And so this is what Rick Hansen works on, is if we have a negativity bias, if there is this genetically programmed negativity bias in the way that our neurons fire, in the way that we are wired, then we may have this predisposition to sort of remember negative things and ruminate on negative things and ponder negative things. And so then what becomes the forefront of what we are paying attention to? Negative things, because that's what we are, that's kind of what we're wired to do. So that's why he looks at Buddha's brain and hardwiring happiness, and that's why it's called Hardwiring Happiness. That's why his book is called Hardwiring Happiness, because if there is this predisposition towards this negativity bias, and we know it, then we need to put actions in place to hardwire happiness, as opposed to sadness, fear, depression, or anxiety. All right. And we can do it. So we actually need to take an active role. We can say, oh, wow, that was a negative event in my life. And we can ponder about it. And we can understand and be aware. This is where, to me, the awareness really comes into play, because if you're aware that genetically we do have a negativity bias, when something negative does happen in your life, you can become aware of that and be, oh, wow, look what my mind is starting to do. It's really starting to form a concrete memory around this. And because you came to this class and are practicing mindfulness, you're going to say, oh, wow, what can I do to shift that? Is there anything I can do to shift that? Because I'm not really needing to go out and hunt and food is fairly available to me. Survival may be less of an issue. And so I don't really, need to think too much about where I'm going to get my next meal, or saving up for the winter. Maybe some of us are in terms of, finances. But that if we understand that there's a negativity bias that occurs, that we actually put into place a practice that helps us form positive emotions, positive thoughts, joy and happiness. And this is where the hardwiring happiness comes in. And it's really a practice. It's really a practice. He has an acronym called HEAL, HEAL. And really it's about the first three. You can do the fourth. But HEAL is to have a positive experience. So that might be difficult for some, but H is have a positive experience. E is enrich it. A is absorb it. And L is if you want. So L is optional. All right. L is optional. L is totally optional. Okay. When we are having that positive experience and we are enriching it and absorbing it, that we link the positive experience to a negative one that we had in the past. So link positive to negative. And essentially what you're doing is you are rewiring, you're sort of rewriting the brain circuitry of the negative experience with the positive experience that you're having in this moment. Kind of cool, right? Kind of cool. It takes practice. Okay. The first three things that we're going to do today in our meditation is really the HEA part. Okay. And that's why I love it, enriched mindfulness. Enriched mindfulness. Okay. Why does that ring a bell to me? Because we've talked about this in the past, right? I've asked you to do things like when you are experiencing, when you notice that you are aware, to bring awareness to that, right? To enrich that moment. When you have a moment of mindfulness, like, oh, wow, I'm really mindful of this cup of tea, to notice that moment, right? You're sort of like, you're bringing like an added element of consciousness to the experience, right? Here I am, right? Walking my dog. And all of a sudden you see there's a beautiful flower on the side of wow. You see the flower, you're mindful you see the flower, and then what do? You rest in that. Your mind, you increase, sort of expand your awareness and take in the moment. Right? You're making a connection with another human being in that moment, whatever it might be. That's all part of mindfulness. So it's really paying attention, right? That's the definition of mindfulness that we've used now for 3.5 years. Paying attention to the present moment on purpose. So now, what do? Okay, so you have a positive experience, as small as it might be. Like I'm gonna have some water, right? As soon as I feel the water quenching my thirst. How's that? That might be a positive experience, right? Maybe I go home and I have a slice of pizza. The taste of the first bite of pizza, right? I go outside and I feel the warm sun hitting my skin. As I feel the warmth, positive experience, right? You can even try to even sort of uh, generate positive experience by, for instance, going for walks in nature, if that creates positive, knowing yourself, saying, oh, these are things like going to the beach generates positive experience. Listening to music generates positive, calling my friend generates positive experience. Reading this book, going for a walk, holding hands with my, partner, whatever it might be, generates a positive experience. Or it just might be, hey, here we are as a community doing this together. You just might, spontaneously, you might just have a positive experience. How lucky are we to be able to do this? Positive experience, right? Now, when you have that positive experience, we don't just allow it to be a fleeting moment. And this is where the conscious action comes into place. And this is where the rewiring and hardwiring comes into place. That when you have that positive experience, you actually enrich it. Like you sit in the moment for longer. Like you might maybe consciously say, wow, that is a really beautiful flower over there. Look at it, right? Like you bring it in. Like I'm watching. I have a green plant in my office, and one of the leaves is just starting to unfold, and it's so beautiful, right? You can see the unfoldment happening in real time. It's so beautiful, right? I'd look up, I see this plant unfolding in real time. Ooh, wow, what a beautiful positive experience. And even by me telling you it, right, is what? Enriching it, right? It's enriching it. And that's why it's enriched mindfulness. Enriched mindfulness. So you take every moment, the moment that you are mindful, positive, and you enrich it. You have a positive experience, so you have the positive experience, and then you enrich it consciously. Wow, look at that. It's just, man, that taste. This coffee is so good. Just let me sit in it for a little bit, right? Let me experience it. And so what's the A then? Absorb it. Allow yourself to absorb that positive experience. Don't allow the moment to just come and disappear. When the moment comes, when that positive moment comes, you allow it to come. You notice it. So now you're bringing mindfulness to the present moment. You're bringing awareness to the present moment. You're enriching it consciously, and you're allowing yourself to absorb it. It's like an energy that you're allowing yourself to absorb, right? Imagine it the way that I sometimes I have these visceral feelings, like a really deep felt sense, right? Imagine a joyful experience or a happy experience. And if you've ever, the sun is a really good example. Like, let's say it's a cool day outside and you go out into the sun, and you feel the warm heat of the sun hitting your face or your body. So you can choose, right? It's almost like a choice. It can be cold. Maybe you're in a hurry. You feel the sun hitting you. You go, that feels nice, and then you keep going. You get in your car and you drive away. All right, but I know the majority of you have done this, right? Where you come outside, maybe it's it's too air conditioned in a room, or or just it's a cold day, and then finally the sun shines through the clouds, and as soon as you hit the sun, as soon as the sun rays hits you and you feel that warmth, you sort of rest in it, right? You sort of allow yourself to bathe in those sun rays. You're like, That feels really good. And you just take that moment to allow the sun. Am I crazy in this, or have you guys done this too? You sort of allow the sun to like really warm you, really just sort of that sun feels really. That's the exact same. So for me, it's a very visceral feeling. It's a very felt sense. And that's the same thing of like, you know, hey, your son or daughter is calling you, and they're just calling to say hi. Oh, let that be like the sun, coming in. Hi, hey, let me just sit with this. You know, my son is calling, my daughter is calling, whatever it is. Hey, look at that flower over there. Let me go smell it. Let me take in the aroma of the flower. Let me do it again, right? As opposed to here's the flower and you just kind of go up to it. And go, oh wait, let me take it in. Let me do it again. So you're really enriching the moment, and you're allowing that moment to be absorbed in your system. Okay. By doing that, you are literally starting to rewire your brain to what? Well, what you're repeating, what you are spending time with, right? And that would be joy, happiness, whatever is that positive experience that you are having, that you are enriching and absorbing. Okay. If you do want to link it, all it is just you just bring up some negative experience from the past, and you link it to the positive experience that you are having in the present. And it's a rewiring of the negative experience that you had in the past. It's actually a rewiring in the brain of the negative experience you had in the past. Okay. And so that'll be our practice today. And this is something that like I highly recommend as you go into the weekend. I highly recommend you do this with even the smallest positive experience you may have. There might be. Maybe it's experience, I'm standing on my 2 feet today. Good for me. Right? Maybe I wasn't able to, or I had pain, or hey, I can walk. That's cool. All right, let's go into our practice for today. Okay, so let's find a comfortable posture. A posture that will feel relaxed, yet alert. And for this exercise, you can really be walking, standing, sitting, lying down, whatever is most comfortable for you in this moment. Closing your eyes if you feel comfortable closing your eyes. If not, having a soft downward gaze as if you're looking off onto the horizon. And just taking a moment to take 2 or 3 deep breaths and allowing yourself to be fully present. and allowing yourself to practice this practice and see if you can actually cultivate a little joy, enrich it. Mindful enrichment of a positive experience. And beginning by paying attention to your anchor, directing your attention to your anchor. Your anchor is a place that you choose to place your attention on, to direct your attention to. This can be your breath, it can be a felt sense in your feet, your arms, your legs, your whole body. It could be an emotion. It could be an image in your mind's eye. It could be the repetition of a prayer, sound, phrase, mantra. Whatever works for you that you can direct your attention on. You may notice that sometimes your anchor may change, and that is perfectly fine. But see how you can direct your attention. And then notice how your mind wanders. And that is the activity of the mind wandering. And as you notice the wandering mind, simply redirect it back to your anchor. With compassion, love, kindness for yourself. There's no judgment, there's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad. As your mind wanders, simply redirecting it back. And that is a perfect moment of mindfulness. And now in your mind's eye, see if you can bring up a positive experience that happened to you recently. Be as specific as possible. Bring up the time, the event, the people in your mind's eye. Think of a positive experience. Notice what emotions arise or felt sense in the body. Can you enrich it as you bring it into your awareness? Can you enrich that moment and absorb the energy of this positive experience? Allow it to flood every part of you, every single cell. And if your mind wanders, that's perfectly fine because you know that's what the mind does. Seeing if you can come back to your positive experience, consciously enriching it, being present with it, almost as if you could expand the amount of time you are with this experience, as if you were able to elongate the time, stretching it out, being with that positive experience and really allowing it to inform your body, your cells, your tissues, your molecules, your atoms, your electrons, every subatomic particle, your whole body. Having a positive experience, enriching it, as if you could expand time, fully being present with that experience as you bring it into your mind's eye, fully absorbing it into all parts of your body, mind and spirit. And if you wish to bring up another positive experience, you can do so as well. As you're having another positive experience, can you enrich this one too? Can you absorb it? As if you're bathing in the sunlight of this incredibly positive experience. Fully bathing yourself in this energy, allowing the warmth to penetrate every part of you. And just noticing what your experience is, what thoughts or emotions or sensations are arising in this moment. If you wish, you can direct your attention back to your anchor, or you can continue being absorbed in your positive experience, enriching that moment, elongating time. What is your experience now? Can you be with it for this moment? Simply noticing how your body feels as you've enriched and absorbed some positive experiences in your life. And with that, as we bring this short meditation to a close, seeing how you may incorporate this meditation into your daily life, really noticing and becoming aware of positive experiences, enriching them consciously, actively, and absorbing them fully. Gently bringing your attention back to your anchor, back to your resource, taking 2 or 3 deep breaths and feeling your whole body breathing. Opening your eyes if your eyes were closed, reorienting yourself to your room and surroundings, feeling your feet on the floor, your whole body, stretching if you feel like you need to stretch, and just taking a moment to reflect on your practice. All right. Well, I encourage you to continue this practice, enriched mindfulness, throughout your day into your weekend, and really see how it works for you. Really kind of, you know, have those positive experiences. You don't necessarily need to create them, they will come, or you can create them. Right? But even if you notice the small things, like the food that you're eating, the water that you're drinking, the tea that you're drinking, the air that you're breathing, the people you might be with. It's a very, they're not, it doesn't have to be really complex. It can just be that appreciation of what already is, and you bring it in and you enrich it. All right. With that, have a beautiful, beautiful day. Bye bye.